Hi there, I'm gale-bound in the island of Harbour in the Baltic Sea, and I've had a rough night in here in this harbour, and it's led me to think about one or two things. First one is this: years ago, donkeys years ago, I was in an old gaffers race in the Solent, and all the old gaffers piled into cows at the end of the race and all went ashore and had a great night in the restaurants and on the pop and at the prize giving. And we came back to the boats and it was starting to blow in from the north. Now Cowes is wide open to the north. There's a bit of a breakwater these days, but it's not much good, and in the old days there was nothing. So if you were out there on the outside berths, you were vulnerable. And there was a rumour going round that it was going to blow out the north. Well, it didn't look too bad to me. And then this old fella came along the dock, and he was a chap I knew and had reason to respect, and he looked me in the eye and he said, "You want to get out of there, son," he said. "Tonight it's going to blow a bastard." And that's what he said. Those were his words. So I got out and I went up the river. I took his advice. Some of the boats didn't. One of them was owned by my good friends, and she was wrecked. She literally was stuffed under the railway pier and was sunk, and his wife was badly damaged trying to sort her out. So first thing is, what I learned that night: just don't ignore the portents, don't ignore what your instinct is telling you, don't ignore the forecast, and don't ignore the barometer. Because in here last night, I was at the far end of the harbour, and I'll show you a little picture of the harbour here. It'll be a little cutaway. Here it is, look. You can see where my trace goes, and I was at the bottom end of the harbour there, with the wind blowing me hard onto that wall. Now, it wasn't too bad yesterday afternoon, but the barometer had been doing some interesting stuff. It had dropped 20 points from when I came in the previous day. That didn't look too good. And as the afternoon went on, it just started to go up again. And the forecast from Sweden was that it was going to go up 40 knots last night, and maybe more, straight into the harbour through that little entrance, and with me stuffed right on the wall down there. Well, I wasn't sure about that. There was a German guy on the next yacht, and he says, "Nah," he said, "it's not going to blow that hard. 4-6 maximum. I've got the forecast here from Hamburg." Well, I went down below and I tapped the barometer and it shot up. And one thing I have learned over the years is sharp rise after low, you're in for a blow, mate. And that's a fact. And it went on going up, so we thought, we'll have no more of this, Ros and I. And we moved the boat. We didn't want to. We had a bit of a trouble getting her off the wall, and people were looking as if we were lunatics. But I went past one Dutchman, and that Dutchman looked to me like he'd been round Cape Horn, and he saw what I was doing, and he gave me a big thumbs up. So that was very encouraging. So we parked ourselves in this dodgy berth here. It's really not much of a place. It's got all horrible piling on the wall and rusty stuff. But we knew we'd be safe in here. We're tucked away in a corner, and we got ourselves tied up. And sure enough, right on the button at 3:30 this morning, it's pelting with rain and it's blowing a straight solid 40 knots and a lot more in the gusts. So out on deck we came, and we looked at our lines. We were a yard off the dock. Our lines had stretched and we'd blown off. And that's where the second big bonus came in, because I don't tie up with all my lines on top of each other in a heap. One rope does one job and it goes to one cleat or one other place, so that there's something I can get hold of for each individual rope. And first of all, we needed to get 2 extra lines out, obviously. We were lying to our summer lines, and the time had come to do something about it. We should have done it last night, but we didn't. And so what do? Well, you see, I'd led my stern spring line to the primary winch. So all I had to do was wind that winch, and the boat just came into the dock, no problem at all. And it goes through that nice quarter block there, an easy lead, no trouble. So that brought the stern in, the bow was hanging out a bit, and the bow line had led to my anchor windlass. So I went up there, touched the button, in came the bow. So that was sorted. I then put my heavy lines on, these guys. These are nylon. I've had these for donkey's years. My mate Ian McGilvery gave me these. He got them off a big yacht he was on. Don't ask where that came from, but there they are, and they're nylon. So what I do with these, I use them to back up the normal shoreline. So I'm wound right in on that spring line. I put this in, and I put it on the secondary winch, and I crank that up as tight as I could, and then I ease the spring just a little bit until this one took up the strain. And then they were both taking equal strain. I did the same at the bow, and Bob's your uncle, lying pretty, no problem at all. We're heeling over in the gusts. Ros came back on board. She actually had to sit down because she was being blown off her feet, and that normally happens when it's 50 knots plus, and I think some of those gusts were. So that was it. So, you know, don't hesitate to move your boat if you don't like the look of things. You might be in harbour and think you're all right, but you don't want to end up pinned on a wall, popping your fenders with 45 knots of wind just blowing you to pieces. Move if you can, and don't hesitate to do so, and lay your lines so that you can do something with them when it counts. 9 times out of 10 it doesn't count. You can do what you like, tie up like a farmer, it's perfectly okay, but on a night like last night you'll be glad you're tied up like a sailor man.